Hello, everybody, and welcome to Blackfoot Songs of Gravity with speaker Corey Gray. My name is Kawachani Heredia Brat. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a third-year philosophy major and a theater minor, and I'm also an intern for the American Indian Resource Center and a member of the Caltech Nation from Texas.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrea Lopez. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a second-year sociology major with a minor in education. I'm also a second-year intern for the American Indian Resource Center, and my tribal affiliation is Lakota. Before we continue with our event, we'd like to acknowledge that UC Santa Cruz is located on the unceded territory of the Waswa-speaking Yupi tribe. The Amamutsin tribal band, comprised of the descendants of Indigenous people taken to Mission Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma.
This event is hosted by the UC Santa Cruz American Indian Resource Center and University Library Special Collections and Archives in collaboration with Professor Enrico Ramirez Ruiz, Vera Rubin Presidential Chair for Diversity in Astronomy at UC Santa Cruz.
The AIRC is dedicated to supporting the needs of American Indian students and increasing Native visibility on campus by hosting student-centered programs, cultural events, and providing tools for academic success and personal well-being. The center is a vital link between American Indian students, the university, and tribal communities that fosters growth through mentoring, leadership opportunities, and scholarly development.
Corey Gray is Scottish and Blackfoot and is a member of the Siksika Nation of Alberta, Canada. He grew up in Southern California and received Bachelor of Science degrees in physics and applied mathematics from Humboldt State University. After he completed his degree, Corey was hired as a detector operator by Caltech to work for the astronomy project Laser Interferometer Gravitational-Wave Observatory, or also known as LIGO, in Washington State. At LIGO, Corey worked on teams to both build and operate gravitational wave detectors. Please give a warm welcome to Corey.
Thank you so much, Chani and Andrea. Thank you. So does this mean I'm starting now? Is there anything else going on in the agenda?
No, go ahead and start, Corey.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let me just get set up here. Rebecca, the time I should be ending is maybe 5. Is that what I should be looking at? I have a clock set up.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let me just share my screen. Can you see that okay, just as a slide?
Yes.
Not blank slide. Okay. All right, here we go.
An achievement as historic as detecting space-time waves deserves special honor. And this year, we gave a special breakthrough prize in fundamental physics to the leaders and their teams who brought it to fruition.
All right, so how often do you get to have Morgan Freeman talk about the work that you do? So that was from the 2016 Breakthrough Prize. That was, I think, February of that year. And I'll talk a little bit about what he was talking about in that award with my talk today. So this title slide shows the name of this presentation, so Blackfoot Songs of Gravity. And what we're looking at here is where I work in Washington State. I'm teasing you with what the detector looks like. So we're looking down the Y arm, Rattlesnake Mountains in the background, and you can kind of see there's quite a few tumbleweeds out there. I have lots of information, so I'll probably just jump right into it. In this whole age of Zoom, it's been kind of crazy just to give talks in person again, because you're sort of getting back into it. And I've finished a couple, and what I've noticed is that I've been running long. So I just want to get started and also talk about why I'm a little bit in mourning, because I have to cut my talks down, and it's like I kill myself a little bit when I'd have to remove slides that I really love. So yeah, so I'm going to try to cover as much as I can so I won't be too sad. Yeah, okay. So one thing with this talk is that, yeah, I do work in astronomy with a project that's covering astrophysics, but I'm also sneaky in that I also throw in my culture with my talks. And so I've been doing that more so in the last few years. And so I'm a little sneaky in that way. So it's like an old Indian trick. And so one thing I like to do is also just share some of our language. So the Blackfoot Confederacy consists of 4 bands. And so they're right here. So there's the Gaina or Gainai, and then the Piikani, and then the Siksika, which are the 3 bands in Canada. And then Amskapi Piikani is the big reservation in Western Montana. And so they're designated by these orange areas right here. The green area is arguably our territory back in the day, but I would say it's probably 2 or 3 times that. We were a plains tribe, or we are a plains tribe. We were a bit of a warrior tribe. We kind of fought a lot of our neighbors, but we're really nice. I trust me, or yeah. What else? Yeah, so a warrior tribe. One thing that I think about is that one thing we would do is that we would steal horses from other tribes. And so there's like powwow songs that are called horse stealing songs. I'm a reluctant science communicator. I never thought I would do things like this. I'm pretty shy by nature, shy and quiet, but I think over the years, I've learned the importance of science communication. And one thing that's helped me is being not someone who steals horses, but someone who steals the cool styles of other speakers. So that's what I steal nowadays. Okay, so as far as Blackfoot language, how do you say hello? So hello is oki, and I just wanted to share that. This is a picture of my family. So this is my mother. I hope you could see my mouse. So this is my mother, Sharon Yellowfly. My uncle Sherman is the little one with the chubby cheeks here. And then both of my grandparents, Percy and Cecile Yellowfly, are right here. I like these old photos, so there'll be quite a few of those in my talk. This is one that my mother took at the Calgary Stampede when she was a kid in the 60s. And I'm showing it because of this gentleman here. Well, you can see all these 10-gallon hats, cowboy hats that are being worn. So, I mean, natives make the best cowboys. That's another thing that's been said. But this gentleman here is my great-grandfather on my grandmother's side. His name's Alphonse Slay. He gave me my Blackfoot name, which is Agaposuis, which means many weasel tails. And I'm showing the slide because of what's behind him. So it's a teepee that was given to him by Chief One Gun, who is also a relative. And I like this because it is a star teepee. So I believe it is a red background with yellow circles on it. And so you will see this in a lot of Blackfoot teepees. So you'll see designs like this, or you might see on the tops of these flaps right here, 7 stars up there, which is in reference to a Blackfoot story, which is in reference to the constellation Pleiades. And so you'll see a lot of those on some teepees as well. And so it's not a surprise if you're ever up on our lands, you'll see how flat it is there, how big the sky is even now, and you can see how prominent the stars, the Milky Way, the sun, the moon are. And so that's why that's, I think, a natural reason why there's a connection with astronomy, with Indigenous peoples in general, not just Blackfoot people. Over the years, more recently, I've learned about this instrument a Blackfoot instrument that are kind of scattered throughout our area, and it's called a medicine wheel, or Iniskim Umapi, which I believe is buffalo calling stone. That's what that means in Blackfoot. But basically, there's several structures out on the plains. Here you can see the center cairn or rock pile. There's one way out here. This is right around sunset when I did this, so kind of close to solstice. And these piles are arranged geometrically in a wheel fashion. And the idea is that these were used for ceremony, and then also to mark events related to the sky, like watching the sun and stuff. So from this instrument of the plains, we're going to go to this instrument in Eastern Washington. So as Chani said earlier, I work for LIGO, which stands for Laser Interferometer Gravitational-Wave Observatory, which consists of 2 ground-based detectors. This is one of them. This is where I live and work, or this is where I work. Really quick, I'm just going to give you a little tour. We saw a picture earlier looking down this arm, the Y arm. We're going to take a look down the X arm right now. And then I'm going to explain what this thing is, this big L is. So let's take the quick, fast tour down the X arm. Notice the tumbleweeds. Those arms are 4 kilometers long. We just passed the 1 kilometer mark. Here's the 2 kilometer mark where this building is. That is a liquid nitrogen truck filling a big tank for a vacuum pump. And then here, down here is the end station for the detector. And I'll show you a little bit more about what the detector is and how it works. But back to me. So I grew up in Southern California. So I wasn't born on the res. I grew up in Southern California. My mom was born up there, and then she and my dad moved down to Southern California. In case you don't know or couldn't tell, I am the person, it's hard to see my mouse. This is me right here. No tie back in the day. I think I had clip-ons back then. And yeah, so I grew up outside of LA. This is my kind of my history, like what I did over the years or what my studies were. So I went K through 12 in Southern California, near San Bernardino. And then I went to Humboldt State University, which is now Cal Poly Humboldt. And I received Bachelor's of Science degrees in physics. And then since there's so much math with the physics degree, I got a 2nd degree in applied mathematics. And then these are the 3 internships that I did as an undergrad. The last one is SLAC, which is actually just over the hill from Santa Cruz, where we're at right now. And I might be near there tomorrow. And then I graduated last century and took a job last century because I'm old, stressing century. So back in 1998, I took a job with Caltech and joined the team that was just beginning to build these new detectors back in 1998. And so a lot of us were building this detector. And then once we had the first initial LIGO detector built, there's a team of operators who drove the detector. And so I was one of those as well, an operator. And then I was a supervisor for a few years. And then I also do this type of work, so science communication work. The pictures are just me as a kid. You could see that I liked pizza and stuff and had braces, so I was a looker. And then the bottom right picture is a picture of me inside the corner station of the L, and I'm up above the detector with laser safety goggles on. This is another picture of our reserve. This is my mom, my brother T or Steve, and me right on our reserve near the Bow River. Our reserve is about 60 miles downriver from Calgary. And this is Alberta, Canada. And this is my father, Tom. So yeah, Tom Gray, and then that's me as well. This is the operator team for LIGO back in 2016. So you could see me and my fellow colleagues there. I have another role model. So my parents were my main role models, but another one, I'm dating myself, back when I was in high school, this was a TV show I loved. He has a Flames hat. So yeah, go Flames. I think they're tied up 2-2 this week against Dallas. So yeah, I love the show, and I found out that the character studied physics. And so I wanted to be an Indigenous or a Siksika MacGyver when I grow up. And I'm still on that path. I'm still working on that. Okay, so like I said, I have trouble with my talks, and then that I cram too much into them and have skipped things before. And one thing I don't like doing is skipping this slide because it's elderly advice. I'm sure maybe some of you might recognize this image. This image is from the movie Interstellar, and there's a connection between Interstellar and the work that I do as well that I'll mention later. So as far as advice, internships, I kind of mentioned that earlier. I especially like to say this for undergrads or high schoolers, just that because I didn't know about them until I was a few years into undergrad, just the importance of internships. Internships are they're just essential and great because they are opportunities to do research in what you're studying. It doesn't have to be astronomy, doesn't have to be science, but that's one good thing about it. Another thing is it's research that you could put on a resume, and it's also something you could get paid for as well. So like I said, I got an internship at SLAC, like my last year at Humboldt. find your passion. I think you'll see this through my talk. I've learned over the years that it's not good to get burnt out on your work or burnt out on anything. So the way I keep my sanity is to have my foot in different areas. And so you'll see that throughout my talk. Yeah, fail. I just throw that in there because failing shouldn't be a negative thing. I think I've learned most of the most important things in my career from failing, because you understand what you did wrong and then figure out ways to get to move forward. And so I'll probably fail today just with not being able to cover everything I want to share with y'all. Be ready for ideas. Yeah, my phone's right here, but yeah, you never know when ideas will strike. I was putting ideas in for the talk still earlier this morning. And so just have a notebook or phone or notepad on your phone and have that always available, because you don't want to lose ideas that might come to you. And then bring your whole self to your work. You'll see that in this talk, I think. Then here is Corey in action. So this is me salsa dancing with one of my friends. And then this is me, I'm a grass dancer. I like powwows. So I was definitely, when the music at the beginning was going on, I was definitely sweating a little bit because I was dancing in the background. I love Crow Hops and I love Northern Cree, that group. And so yeah, so this was at the Yakima Nation powwow with some of my salsa friends. And then I also like hiking. And then this is my dog Gunner from back in the day doing a backpacking trip. His paws failed him, and so I had to carry him. Okay, so into the science. So we're going to talk about what the main focus of this talk is. So I'm sure we all know who this gentleman is. Keep track of that year, 1915, because that is the year that Einstein changed the way we think of gravity. And that was when he unveiled the general theory of relativity in Berlin, that fall of 2015. And so it's just a different way of conceptualizing or thinking about or explaining how gravity works. So instead of thinking of objects connected to each other by forces, I have a muffin here and my chapstick, instead of a force, Einstein thought of gravity as how masses bend the space or warp the space around them. So the bigger the object, the more warping of space or space-time around them. And here's a visual, because I'm totally visual. I'm not a good, it's hard for me to understand things when you just say it. So here's a visual of kind of what I was talking about. So you have a sun or star here and a planet here. And so you just kind of see the larger object bend space more compared to the smaller object. And that is the way Einstein explains gravity. And thinking of it as a force works for most cases, but when you have extreme gravity or strong gravity objects, that's when Einstein's general relativity, totally covers things and explains it. And so I don't have it in this image here, but if you had a black hole or a neutron star, those are strong gravity objects. If they were in this scale-wise, you wouldn't see them because they're going to be really tiny, but you would see these huge holes, very deep holes caused by these compact objects. And that is important because those type of strong gravity objects are the ones that are going to cause the biggest bends in space-time. And so taking it a step further, what happens if you just move these objects that we're looking at here? If you move them around in space, they'll actually make little ripples in space-time. So if you had a basketball and you were in a pool and you just had the ball there and if you moved it around, it would cause little waves. And so that's kind of an analogy of what I'm talking about right here. I like movies, so I'm going to show a quick video. So Neo is sort of acting like a strong gravity object with the matrix behind him. He's bending the space behind him, and then he's causing these waves as well. And so black holes are sort of like Neo here. Yeah, if there's ever a LIGO movie, I think it'd be kind of cool if Keanu could play me. Okay, how do you detect these wiggles in space-time? So Einstein actually did the calculations a year after unveiling general relativity. So in 1916, he went through the calculations and he thought, after he did it, he saw that by the time these signals come from two stars crashing into each other, the waves would eventually get so small because they're happening so far away, like a collision would happen so far away. By the time those wiggles approach us, they would just be monumentally small and there'd be no way we would ever be able to detect them. So a few things have happened since 1916. So the idea of neutron stars and black holes, so strong gravity objects that really bend space-time, they've come on the scene. And then of course, technology improves. And so that's what we have right here. So this is a type of instrument that was designed to detect these small whispers in space-time. And so the things to look at are these circles here. So the circles here are mirrors. This slit or this line here is actually another optic. It's called a beam splitter. And then this is called a laser. This is a laser. And then here would be a detector. This all comes from Ray Weiss. He came up with the idea for this setup way back in 1972. And I'm putting this on here just so you get an idea of how long science takes to happen. And also to date myself, because I just noticed this like just this year that when this paper came out 10 days after it, that's when I was born. So I kind of have a small connection there. But let's see how this thing works, how this sensitive ruler works. So you have your laser here, beam splitter, and then the light and the detector. And we're going to talk about light basically as a wave here. So from the laser, you're going to get two twin waves of light get split by that beam splitter. One twin goes down to hit that one mirror. The other wave hits the other mirror on the left off camera. And then those waves recombine or interfere with each other at the beam splitter and cancel each other out. And you don't see any light here. And so no light at the detector. But if you move those mirrors just a little bit, you can see it right there. You'll see positive and negative interference. You'll see light and no light, just by changing the length the light travels in each arm. And so small effects can be easily seen on this detector. And that's kind of a perfect reason why interferometers are good for detecting these tiny, tiny signals that we want to look for. For our detector, those arms were 4 kilometers long. And for, if you just look at one of the arms, the length, we're just looking at a length. That's why I say it's a sensitive ruler. The length that we're trying to resolve over 4 kilometers is 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of a proton. So that's the tiny little wiggle or the difference in length that we're trying to measure. So this is the most sensitive instrument that's ever been built by humanity. And that's what we needed to look for these tiny signals from very violent events far away in the universe. And I'm going to explain this whole thing one more time, just the way the whole thing works. So you have a violent event. So in this case, it's 2 black holes in this dance for millions of years. And the very last second, they crash into each other, make a big burst of a wiggle in space-time or a gravitational wave. And that's what we look for, the explosion that comes from that merger of 2 black holes. That signal passes through the universe, it passes through matter, it passes through other planets, it might even pass through other civilizations, and it carries the information from where it came from. And so we're generally being showered by these signals all the time. And it wasn't until very recently that they were recorded for the first time. So here's the detector, and a signal just theoretically could just pass right through the Earth. And then if we're online, we would record that with this detector and our sister detector in Louisiana. The mirrors at the ends of that arm, here's what one of them looks like. So it's basically a mass on a string. I don't have a good example in here, but basically this mass, which is right here, is suspended with a glass fiber to this mass up here. And then there's 2 more masses. So that basically that mirror is floating in space, and it's just waiting for a violent event from the other side of the universe to move it around. Here's a side view of the same optic right there. And then this is the corner station. So the detector is like an L, the corner station's right here. This is where the laser would be, the beam splitter, and the output detector. Here's a person walking around for scale. This is the X arm going out, and no, the Y arm going out, and the X arm right here. And then here we have me actually in a bunny suit or a clean contamination control suit. And I'm connecting some cables to some of the detectors. So the light from our machine takes a trip down the arms, then comes back, and then we look at the light with these photodiodes or these detectors that are right here. And there's other things. There's a lens, there's a mirror, and then a larger suspended mirror there. But once once there's light on these photodiodes here, then you could take that light and turn it into a current, and you could listen to it in a speaker, or you could look at it in a graph such as this or video. We're looking at just 8 seconds. This is live, and I'm just looping it. And so right now, or when I took this, nothing was being detected. So this is just how the machine looks most of the time. Nothing was shaking our mirrors. And if I can make the noise, I'm going to try to do it. So this would sound kind of like this. So it's just like white noise. So it has a mix of all frequencies in there because there's nothing really distinct in that data. But this is what we need for our machine, just to stay online all the time, because we don't know when a signal might pass through the earth and move our mirrors around. Okay, so this is another way of looking at that same video we saw. Instead of time on the horizontal axis, here we're looking at frequency or wiggles per second. So really slow stuff on the left. So really low down here, and then fast stuff. So that's 10 hertz, 100 hertz, 1,000 hertz or wiggles per second to really high voice, high signal up there. And so this is in the control room where I work. And so this updates every minute, and it just shows us how the machine is working. So this is an important graph to have. What's interesting is our ears can hear generally between 20 hertz down here, all the way up to 20,000 hertz. And our detector operates within that band. So gravitational waves aren't sound, but the way the light that we look at is within that band, so we could actually listen to it as well. So it's just, yeah, so that's how we relate it to sound. So this is actually the light from our detector, but not sound. But because of the frequency that we operate at, like kind of our best spot is right around here. This is the lowest. So the lower you are is the best, or our sweet spot where we could sense things the best. And so right around here is middle C on a piano. So if you were to pluck that key on a piano, that frequency is right around here. I think it's 256 hertz right there. Okay. I'm going to do something I haven't done before. So this is powwow. I like powwows, and so I'm going to try something I haven't tried before. So powwow frequencies. So there's different types of style of singing with powwows singing. And earlier we heard a contemporary Northern drum. I like kind of older style Northern singing, but I'm going to try to do something here. So this is kind of where Northern style singers are a little lower in frequency, so lower. So think of that song at the very beginning of the talk, and then compare it to this, if I could remember the song. So I'm going to sing you a very old song that is also sung in powwows as well. This is from the Blackfoot A1 Singers. It comes from 1969 by, I believe, Thomas Littlechief. And it's a war dance song, but it's also sung for social gatherings as well. So, ya hey da hey da, ya ya hey da hey da, ya hey da ya way ya ya hey da hey da, ya hey da ya hey da oh way. So it's a little lower than we heard earlier. So Northern Cree would be higher frequency, so higher in tone. And so they would be up here, like a little, kind of around 1,000 hertz, and they'd be just, yeah, but I'm not even going to try that. Yeah, so okay, I'm done with that. I was a little nervous about that. Okay, so what do I love about my work? The thing that I've loved is that I joined in 1998. I got to build things. I got to drive forklifts, crane several ton pieces of metal around and install them with other people and work on teams. And so that's been something that I really like, just learning how to build stuff. And so you can't buy a lot of our stuff over the counter. So scientists or physicists come up with ideas of what they want, and then engineers take that idea, put it on a drawing, and then like such as this. So basically this is about something that I built a few years ago, basically just something that does this. So if you were a laser beam and you're aimed toward my forehead, I wouldn't like that. So this thing basically takes a mirror and goes like this and reflects the beam somewhere else to save me or to save some of our equipment. And so to make that, this is what this thing looks like. This is what a drawing looks like. This drawing gets taken to machine shops. Shops cut the metal to make all these parts, and we buy screws and hardware like that. And then, yeah, here's a group that I built here, and you can see what it looks, how they work here, because these are inside of our vacuum system. So we can't, once we build these and install them, we can't access them, or we can, but it takes months to get in there to do little changes. So here is one of my babies in action. Very simple, very simple task, but it took a lot of work to do it, to make it. And that's with a lot of our instrumentation. It takes a lot of work and money to build stuff like that because it's all custom. But this also gave me confidence to build things for fun as well. So I mean, I've 3 months ago, I installed a microwave over my stove. I've changed my water heater out before, and I wouldn't have had that confidence before my job because I was all thumbs. But yeah, my job taught me how to read procedures, not be afraid of tools, et cetera, et cetera. So my pandemic project was this, so building a wooden kayak. And so one thing that I like to stress is that this is indigenous engineering or indigenous tech. Because these are several thousands of years old, on the order of I think 4,000 or 5,000 years old, and they come from the indigenous peoples of Greenland, Alaska, and Canada. And so from an idea, you get a drawing, and then you get the parts that were on my front door. This is everything that you need to build one of these boats. And then 5 months later, this is what I had. And so this is me at Glacier National Park in Montana, where I got it wet for the first time. Just another power reference. So, I mean, this is something I thought of when I was a kid, like when I was working at LIGO. The mirror, there's all these noise sources that we have to worry about. And one particular mechanical noise source comes just from this mirror. That mirror is about this big. I think it's about $200,000 or $300,000 to make that chunk of glass. And like, there's a resonant mode. So if you excited that glass at a certain frequency, it excites the material and makes it move in certain ways. And we don't like that. We only want gravitational waves to move our mirrors. But this one resonant mode, which I think is at about 10,400 hertz, 10,000 wiggles per second, it looks like this. If you rotate it like this, laid the mirror flat. This is what the top and bottom surfaces do. So this is what a drum head mechanical resonance looks like. And we call it a drum head. So when I first heard that, I immediately, of course, thought of powwows. Because I built a powwow drum as well. I have a hand drum and a big drum as well. Yeah, so 98 is when I joined the project. With the team, we built initial LIGO. Here are other, it's just my age, I'm giving my age up. So you can see when I used to not have gray hair here. You can see how old this is. So that's not PowerPoint, that's like an overhead projector. I don't know if people know what that is. Very old technology. This is on the two upper corner photos are on the Yakima Reservation. It's at their White Swan High School. And then here I am just driving a forklift here. And here we are getting ready for advanced LIGO. So from 1998 to 2010, we had this first detector, initial LIGO, and then we upgraded it from 2010 to 2015. I hope I'm not going too fast, and I hope you're catching what I'm saying and not falling asleep. I feel like I'm talking fast. Here I am at MIT, just working on a project there. And then here I am with an engineering group in Boulder, Colorado. So yeah, so this is just something I've thought of, over the years. So back in 2011, even then, I've been with the project, almost 15 years. I was still pretty shy and kind of intimidated by other scientists I work with. Like I was very focused on building stuff, turning a wrench, working on a computer. But the big science, I never really thought of it, and because I was intimidated to ask the dumb questions. But luckily, a couple of years, I had a roommate from MIT who was a grad student and a friend, and we were hiking on this trail here. This is the Pacific Crest Trail. We didn't hike the whole thing, just it's near where we live. And I remember asking him the question I've always thought, like, this is 2011, and I thought, asked Nick, do you think we're ever going to make a detection? Do you think we'll ever see these signals? And without skipping a beat, he told me, the percentage, the statistics, like how many we would detect in our first run when we turn on the machine, and then how many detections we'd make over the years. And he totally had the answer ready to go. And so that night when we had a campfire, which was like right over here off camera on the right, I was looking at this peak, Old Snowy, and the Milky Way over it. And I was just thinking and dreaming that night, just like what it would be like to make that first detection. And so this is September 2011. And so I didn't know it, but 4 light years away, that's a signal from 2 black holes colliding, crashing into each other, was moving towards us at the speed of light. So it was 4 light years away, and it was on our collision course with us. Another movie reference. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So remember, I joined the project in '98. Ray designed the project in 1972. And then in 2015, September in 2015, this is what was observed with our detector for the first time. Basically, we saw 2 black holes, about 30 suns, with a mass of 30 suns, roughly. And they're roughly about the size. If you took a basketball, I mean, I know there's Warrior fans out here. If you took a basketball and made it as big as, say, San Francisco, and then threw 30 suns into it, 29 or 36 suns into it, and then had a twin, another one, and then just move them around close to the speed of light. This is what was happening. So all that bent space is being violently vibrated. And right before, as these objects are in this dance for millions of years, it's the very last second where you get the biggest explosion in gravitational waves. And that's what we discovered with this detection that came from a source 1.3 billion light years away, and that means it happened 1.3 billion years ago, so very long ago, and it traveled very far to get to us. And it passed through the Pacific coast at about 3 a.m. on that day, on that night. I was actually working that night, but I'm just gonna skip that part of it, just for time. And so think back to that wiggly video, the wiggly line of a video that we saw earlier, and that noise that I made. This is what was seen from the LIGO detector in Louisiana. So you could see there's definitely something there. That happened 4:50 their time. And then 7 milliseconds later, this is what was seen in Washington, where I work. And you could put these on top of each other. And you could see how well they look, just how well aligned they are. So what you're seeing is that last moment of before the black holes crashed into each other. You're seeing that the frequency is getting higher because they're going faster and faster, and it's getting louder. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the thing about this is Louisiana always lets us know that we were second. They saw it first, but we always tell them that we saw it better because the red color is the data from Washington. The blue data is from Louisiana. And basically, when I worked that night until midnight, and so 2:50 in the morning is when it happened. And so it's pretty much when I went home that night. When I laid my head on my pillow and basically closed my eyes, that is when the signal from 2 black holes crashing into each other passed right through me, and also right through all of us, all of you, and passed right through the earth and just continued on its way. And I got to see this graph a few weeks or maybe days later, and it was just a life-changing thing to see this, because I'd personally been there for 17 years at the time, and it just makes you think of everything. It makes you think of wow, the big picture, and how you're connected to Einstein, and how you're a part of history. And then this, like I don't have children, I just have dogs, but I imagine it must be what it's like to see like the sonogram of your child for the first time. And that's just how much it was just a life-changing experience to see this data for the first time. This was all nighttime in the United States, and it was lunchtime in Europe. And so one of our colleagues at the Albert Einstein Institute in Germany saw the signal for the first time, and they called the control rooms in both detectors in Louisiana and Washington. And you could see it, this was emailed at 3:50 in the morning. This is what I woke up to the next morning. I saw this email with that very interesting event subject line, and then just tons of replies. And that's when I knew something might have happened. Like I said, gravitational waves aren't sound, but the light from our detector can be heard though. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to listen to what that signal sounded like. And that's the raw data, and we're just looping it. So we haven't changed it at all. It's a strong signal. So that was a big surprise to us. We didn't expect black holes that size. It's tweaked a little bit, just to hear it better. And I actually have that as my text tone on my phone. So here's a video of what we saw. And I got, what, 15 minutes? So this is generated by a supercomputer that takes the data that we just saw earlier and makes a video so that we could see what's going on. So you see the two black holes. This is slowed down a whole bunch. You can see the space-time, like a sheet of space-time where it's bent, where the black holes are. And then in the background, you can see blue and red colors. Those are the waves coming from them. This is when the black holes merged into each other to form another black hole. Then it just goes quiet because there's no more bending of space or accelerating of mass there. And so that big burst is what we saw with our detector. So once again, what happened? So first direct detection of gravitational waves, 100 years after Einstein's general theory of relativity. You couldn't have written a script better if you tried. This is the first time black hole pairs had been observed. And then this is the birth of a new field of science. It's like a totally new field that happened with that first detection. So gravitational wave astronomy was born. And like I said, you couldn't have planned it any better, almost down to a few weeks, 100 years after GR. When that signal happened, we couldn't say anything. We were under embargo. That was September of 2015. So only our group, the LIGO Scientific Collaboration, knew about this because we had to do the work of confirming the signal was real, and then also write a paper about it, and then also announce. So there's several months where we couldn't say anything about it. This is a documentary screenshot from a documentary called Inside Einstein's Mind, came out in November 2015, commemorating the 100-year anniversary of GR. And at the very end of the documentary, it talks about what's next for GR. And they talked about a little project called LIGO that might detect gravitational waves. We knew they had to change that documentary already. And then also that month, I gave a talk for the up at Humboldt State for the American Indian College Motivation Days. So these are all high schoolers from tribes up around Humboldt or in Northern California. And then my goofy face here is my poker face because I did not reveal the scoop that I could have revealed. So I would have loved to have shared this discovery with them, but no, I just told them other ways that science can be fun and the physics that we do is fun. But yeah, that's my poker face. Right before we announced, there was talk about translating all of the press releases and these other documents into other languages. And I'm shy, so I was in one of these meetings where this was brought up, and I didn't bring it up in the meeting, but I wrote to the lead of our outreach group, Joey Key, Dr. Joey Key, and she, I basically asked, could it be possible if we let my mother see the draft of the press release and then translate it into an Indigenous language? I actually told my family already, so yeah, but I had to go through this just to do it. But within hours, Joey wrote back and said, as long as your mother is a trusted colleague or collaborator, she thought it was a good idea. So that is when this started. This is February 3rd, 2016. We announced on the 11th of February 2016. Here's Ray. We saw Ray earlier, and then this is Kip Thorne. He's the person, he's a theoretical physicist who worked with Ray with kind of founding LIGO, and he worked with the Nolan brothers for that movie Interstellar. So that's that image we saw earlier. I watched this press announcement at least once or twice a year because it's just so good. So you should look it up on YouTube. And then just popular culture, or pop culture, just what the reaction to it. So we were on the Late Show. Von Miller talked about how he tackled other people like these black holes crashed into each other. And then our data was warned by Sheldon too as well. So you know you're big time. And then we were tweeted all over the place. So I didn't know Angry Birds were into astrophysics. And then of course, the president also tweeted about this discovery as well. And then some people are crazy enough to actually put this data on their bodies. That's actually me. So that's, I had to wait, but as soon as I saw the data for the first time, I knew I was gonna put that on my skin. So it's like right here. If I ever forget the date, I could just look at my, okay, there it is. That's the name of the detection. And here I am just taking pictures with friends. This is Dr. Jedida Eisler at the 2016 SACNIS conference. That's where I met actually Enrico for the first time as well. So Jedida is just a hero of mine, and she studies supermassive black holes. So I had to get a selfie with her. And so here is the work of my mother, returning to that. So all of the press release is translated into all these languages, and then you could see Siksika up there. And here it is here. This is, me and my mom worked on typing it and putting on a PDF. And then Indian Country Today actually printed it or posted it in an article. And then this is on the Yakima Res, a story about my mom, what she did. And I'm wearing the data. So that tie there is this one here, and it's actually the data as well. I'm a nerd. And then this is our tribe's paper, which also covered this discovery as well. My mom was also at that conference, SACNIS 2016, because she lives in Southern California. And I just love this one because she took that, she bought a t-shirt from the event. And when I was sitting at a table with colleagues along with my mom, she had all of them autograph it. My mom's very cute. So yeah, not much happened as far as attention for that work that my mom did until I got a phone call from Nell Greenfield-Boyce. She's a reporter for National Public Radio. I listen to her all the time because I listen to NPR whenever I drive to work. So yeah, I encourage you to actually Google this and listen to it for yourself, but I'm gonna play just a really quick clip.
Tomorrow, scientists will officially restart their search for gravitational waves after spending over a year improving the massive machines used to detect them. NPR's Nell Greenfield-Boyce reports on how this cutting-edge field of science is connected to a Native American language, Blackfoot.
Gravitational waves were predicted by
Yeah, so listen to the original. It's about 3 minutes. It's not that long, but I'm playing it because millions of people got to hear Blackfoot. They got to hear Siksika Nation. They got to hear Blackfoot words, new word that my mom made for these, for the translation work that she did. Here is another article about my mom's work that happened last year. And it is, this one, I love this one because they recruited a Blackfeet artist who did ledger art that's inspired by these discoveries. So this is Taryn Lasgun, who's from the Blackfeet Reservation, Montana. And those are two black holes colliding that he made on native art known as ledger art, but he did an astrophysics ledger art. And so, yeah, over the years, my mother and I have actually given a couple talks. So this is one at the Indigenous language stability, or it's an Indigenous language conference that was in University of Lethbridge, which is Southern Alberta, which is Blackfoot territory. So in this audience, there was a lot of Blackfoot speakers, and I'm just the opening band. My mom was the main event. So I just finished my part of the talk and my mom is taking over. So yeah, this was so fun to do that. And what was cool is that Blackfoot people were there. And then, a lot of people from our reserve were also there, or res. So a lot of these, the women here were from Siksika Board of Ed, or Education. And so they actually had a big line, and they were hugging my mom because they were so proud of her. And I was getting emotional when I talk about this part, but sorry, I'm also getting dry. So, because they didn't know about this discovery. Gosh, sorry. I don't know why I get emotional in this picture for some reason, but yeah, so they didn't even know about this discovery. They didn't know that there was a connection to Albert Einstein with Blackfoot language, and they didn't know about these new Blackfoot words. So yeah, they were just proud of my mom. My mom over the X arm. I sat my mom down and recorded her saying the translation. So you could look that up on YouTube as well. I'll play some clips later. And then we actually gave a talk on Zoom. This was the only one that she did during the pandemic. This was, I think, in December last year. She was awesome. Why is this important? So yeah, why is this important? So I think it's important because, like, why don't I know my language? And why is the fact that I don't know my language, and a lot of people, why isn't Indigenous language, why aren't there a lot of fluent speakers, and why isn't that in history books? The reason why is because of federal policies of both the United States and Canada. One of the policies was that children were stolen from their parents and forced to go to these schools called boarding schools or residential schools. These schools were re-education camps, basically, where children were punished if they spoke their language, if they practiced their culture. My mom is a survivor of that, and there's other survivors out there, but there's a lot of kids that didn't make it as well. And so this is important because I think it's 2020, last year, there's the article of 215 unmarked graves being discovered at the residential school in Kamloops up in Canada, British Columbia. For Indigenous people, this wasn't a surprise. We know all the stories, and we've heard all of this. So we know about this trauma that's happened for generations. You saw my mom, she went to a boarding school. My grandparents were both taken from their parents to go to boarding school. Alphonse and my great-grandparents were forced to go to boarding school. So this has been intergenerational. That's happened since the late 1800s for certain tribes. This is the school my mom went to. So my tribe is unique in that the boarding schools were right on our reserve. Oh crap, my time. Okay, yeah, so this is the boarding school on our reserve. And we're unique because we had boarding schools on either end of our reserve. One was run by the Catholics here, and the Protestants ran the other one. This one is called Crowfoot. The little girls would be on this top floor here. That's where my mom slept. And then on the left side here is where the boys would be. This is where my mom grew up. This is the community of Little Washington. So from when she was born all the way to when she was 5, this was her life. This is where she was surrounded by family, and then everything changed for her when she was 5 years old and stolen from my grandparents. This is their house. Here's my mom and my grandma. I'm just gonna go through a couple pictures here. This is Sherman, my mom when she's older, and their dog Spike. This is, I think my mom said she took this photo. And with one thing with general relativity is that time is also affected by gravity as well. And you kind of get that from the movie Interstellar. So if you're an observer and you see an object getting closer to a strong gravity object, such as a black hole, time changes. It basically slows down the closer you get to the event horizon of the black hole. And I think of that because I think of these kids here. This is my mom right here. And I just think of these kids and how slow time must have moved, being away from their families and being beaten, and then others just not making it as well, and others trying to escape and not making it as well. That's my mom at the rubble of that building. And so, yeah, I hate focusing on the trauma, but it does need to be said. So that's why I cover that. But I also like to throw this in here just because of all the other language work that's going on out there. So of course, there's the work that my mom has been doing with LIGO. There's also the stories of the Navajo code talkers during World War II. If the Wonder Woman movie from a few years ago, it was awesome to be in the theater and hear Blackfoot words spoken by Eugene Brave Rock there. And then here's an app, a Blackfoot language app. And then this group here are Navajo, and they dubbed Star Wars into the Navajo language. And then the process for my mom, as far as making the translations, I just need maybe 10 minutes. Sorry, just to give you a heads up, sorry. So yeah, so here's the process. So my mom categorized all the Blackfoot words for these translations. So these are words that are already in Blackfoot, and you could see them in white here. And then the direct category is where she took different words in Blackfoot and combined them together. So eggplant is in there because the word for egg and plant in Blackfoot are smushed together, and that's how you say eggplant in Blackfoot. So that's how black holes and binary black holes are made, that word. And then here are the conceptual ones. So these are where I actually got to help. My mom is the main person doing the work. I was a middle person. But if there's some concepts that she needed help or just wanted me to describe for her, so that's what I did. And then with that, and also working with other family, this is how she made these new Blackfoot words for these scientific terms. And then this last one where it's literary license. And she kind of had to summarize some of these concepts. So GR would have been something she said would have been a whole page to make a Blackfoot word that would be a whole page. And so she changed it to beautiful planting. So that's the Blackfoot word for that. And here you could hear her say a few words.
Okay, or hello. I am Sharon Yellowfly, a member of the Siksika Nation, and the following neologisms for Manipursin I've created to communicate about physics in the Blackfoot language. Physics. Esatsimia ma istutsi natusi ki kakatusi. Observing where they come from, the sun and stars.
And this is from that article where Taryn Laskin did the art, so you could look this up. So I just wanted you to hear her speaking. And I'm going to try to cover this next detection too really quick, because I know I'm going over. So in August of 2017, this is another, I mean, there's an Indigenous audience here, so I could share a few things I usually don't share with other talks or in other talks. So August 2017, my cousin and I came up with this idea, because I like to be creative with outreach and try to get our science out there to any community in creative ways, or ways that are fun. And so we came up with the idea of having a gravitational wave grass dance special at our annual POW, the Siksika Nation Fair. And so that's this is Trudy and I, that's when we came up with the idea about it. So that happened in 2017, summer of 2017. Yeah, so here's a poster for the event. So these are all the prizes for the winners. And I'm going to back up just a little bit, because right before this event, I attended a Sundance because a family member was a bundle carrier, I believe. And so they were in the Sundance and they invited us to come. And I remember going, and there's one thing that you can do at a Blackfoot Sundance is to see an elder, get your face painted, and then the thing that happens when that happens is, or a thing that I've been told, is that you should think positive thoughts or think about things that you want to do to be a better person. And I actually thought about wanting to be a better scientist. I wanted to do cool things at work. And so that's going to play into the whole story a little bit later. But the other thing with grass dancers, so here are the grass dancers here. My grandma, Cecile, she told me that grass dancers, the way their steps are is that each step is a prayer. And so all of these grass dancers showed up for this event. They also got to hear me talk for about 20, 30 minutes about astrophysics and how it's connected to Blackfoot language as well. See, I'm sneaky that way. I twist things around and get in there. But yeah, so there's all these dancers there. And because of that, and because of that Sundance, that kind of connects to my work as well in another way. Here are the winners for the special. They got hoodies that have our flag and also the data from the first detection on them. So this is where we're at now at LIGO as far as the detection. So there's the first detection we talked about. We've had 90 detections since then. After that event at our POW, I had to drive 13 hours for graveyard shifts the following, like a few hours later. And so luckily, what happened then is that I was there for 2 detections. I was in the control room during my graveyard shift. And they're unique because one of them was the first detection with another detector. So Italy had one that just went online, and that happened on August 14th. Our POW event was August 10th. And then a few days earlier for the Sundance. This was our first triple detection, which basically is the more detectors you have, the better you're able to pinpoint where the source is from. And that was very critical because later at the end of my block of shifts, we saw the first detection of two stars crashing into each other, two neutron stars. And that's a huge one. This is my second favorite detection. And so I was on shift there. This is what the control room looks like at the observatory. I was sitting here at about 5:30 or 5:45 in the morning, and I received a call from the other operator in Louisiana who said I should get on this computer over here to hear about a meeting that was happening in the wee hours of the morning. And I heard people cussing and shouting and talking fast. And I was like, I was thinking, why are they being so rude to each other? And as soon as I heard neutron star, that's when I knew, oh, that's it. they're rushing to send out an alert to electromagnetic astronomers, so that those not LIGO astronomers that look through telescopes and radio wave dishes, tell them where they should point their instruments because we saw gravitational waves from two neutron stars. So we were hurrying up to send this announcement out to the astronomers to point their instruments in the sky. And this is this is where it was, you could see us on the bottom, gravitational waves, and then gamma rays from the satellite. So it was seen in gravitational waves and gamma rays. I have a video, but I'm going to actually skip through it just because of time, because I have 5 minutes that I'm going over. But yeah, we saw this signal in gamma rays. We saw it optically when the sun, this was in the late, early morning, when the sun set later that night. This telescope saw the light from that event. And David Coulter, who I think is a grad student here, he told us a story about this because he was connected to this. I had no idea. So it was cool to hear that story. And then it was seen with infrared. It was seen with, I can't even see my slides, ultraviolet, and then X-ray. So all the spectrum of electromagnetic waves were also saw this event. Radio waves as well. I'm gonna skip this video. So another thing that we have to talk about is the Nobel Prize. So just like a few weeks after that, of crazy August, the Nobel Prize was announced, and the founders of LIGO were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for 2017. Here are the winners: Ray Weiss, Kip Thorne, and then Barry Barish in the middle. And of course, I took photos with all of them. This one with Ray is cool because I actually gave him one of the shirts from that event. So he has a gravitational wave grass dance t-shirt. And then I'm also going to include a little email from Kip, because he wrote this to me, in 2020, from an article that I forgot about. But one thing, my claim to fame now is I could say I drove a Nobel laureate to tears. When I heard that the LIGO founders were awarded, I knew that I would take vacation time and pay my own way to go basically tailgate outside of the Opera House where the medals were awarded. And so this is me at the Nobel Museum with the data. And then this is where Kip, Barry, and Ray were getting their medals along with the other awardees. And of course, I told my family, and they of course wanted to tag along. And so these aren't the real medals. These are chocolate medals. The real ones are about this big and heavy. Ray gave a replica to each observatory. And you can see I'm dressed for the occasion with my tuxedo shirt. I put in images like this, and me salsa dancing, me backpacking, because of representation. That's the other thing I thought about when going to Stockholm, because when would a Blackfoot person get to be in Stockholm when their work was being awarded a Nobel Prize? When would a Blackfoot person be out backpacking with their corgi in the backpack? How many Blackfoot people do you see salsa dancing? It's representation. That is something, that's the reason why I got over my shyness and do science communication. What else? Okay, so one of my best friends from college writes books and makes films. This is his first comic about Indigenous veterans from World War I, and this came out just a few years ago. Here I am with Chegg and me here. And he came to a talk that I gave at Humboldt State a few years ago. And from that, he came up with the idea of wanting to make a comic about, kind of inspired by my mom's work. And so here's the first image of the cover. And then this is more recent. recent. So this was a few years ago on the right, and then on the left, this is like over the last, came out a couple months ago, because we're actually working on it now. So we're hoping in the next few months, this comic will come out. And it's been cool to be a part of it because I've helped with some of the story, and the artist as well. And so it's cool to see how from words you get these images and color, and just see how it comes to be. And you can see we have Einstein here as well on the Siksika Nation. Oops, okay. And then, yeah, real quick, my mom does other translations for us. And so here are some examples of science summaries that she translated for us. I'm almost done. Maybe need like 5 minutes, but okay. So these are other translations. And then these are new words. So my favorite thing about the translations are the new words. And so here we go with some of them. And then they're literal translations in English, like what the Blackfoot words mean in English in red there. And so these are from all these science summaries that she did. And I'm going to skip this just because I'm running out of time. I just want to share a little bit about other Indigenous physicists who are out there. And this one's poignant because, yeah, another colleague of mine joined LIGO a while ago. And just this week, he defended his thesis. So Ron So from the Navajo Nation has a PhD in astrophysics from Caltech. And that just happened, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago. And then another person who does work with gravitational waves is Dr. Brittany Kamai. She's Native Hawaiian, and she kind of led this paper that came out in fall of 2020. You can look it up online. And what I love about it is that she took the lead on it and invited other Indigenous physicists to also contribute. And it's basically just controlling the narrative and just letting people know that, yeah, Indigenous peoples exist within physics. And I'm hoping you got that from this talk as well. And so, yeah. Look that up, download it and read it. It's a good read. And then this is Rob Cardinal, who's from my reserve. So he's an astronomer who looks at comets. He's named a few with Blackfoot words. And just a few weeks ago, I saw we were in a book, like a children's book. So I had to throw that in because I just got it a couple weeks ago. And so we're both on page 90 and 91 here. Then the name of it is Sky Wolf's Call. And the person who wrote this, Eldon Yellowhorn, was in the audience of that talk that my mom and I gave in Lethbridge. And then this is another picture I like to throw in there just because of, yeah, so Kate gave the first in this series of talks here at UCSC. And so, yeah, I'm trying to live up to her standards with that great talk that she gave. But just the Society of Indigenous Physicists came from this event that was kind of organized by Dr. Shimina Sid, because she invited me, and then Angie Little to give a panel. And then all of these people were also there. So here's Kate, Brittany is right there, and then Ron is way in the back. And so from this was sort of the genesis of kind of thinking of a society of indigenous physicists. We have a webpage, so you could look us up as well. And we haven't really met in person, but we've had a few Zoom meetings over the pandemic. Okay, and I'm gonna end here with just a couple clips.
National Science Foundation, NSF, ki mixes Caltech, ki MIT, Anixkai, Utquini Pua, ki Apistucimia, ki Otuskia, Otuitsikatumia.
Okay, and then I have just, this is the end of it.
Son of a biscuit.
She didn't say the bad word, she said biscuit. I sat her there, it took us about 3 hours of me filming her with my phone, but I mean, it's only 13 minutes. You could look it up on YouTube. Here's a booper.
What made you laugh?
The giggles. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, she didn't give up. So I'm going to end on this. So this was the last talk that we gave together before pandemic. This was at McGill University, and this is us having dinner at a cafe in what city is that? I'm drawing a blank. Whatever that city is, and McGill is at. So I walked up to her, and she didn't know I took this photo. But when I saw this photo later, I just think about that little girl from Little Washington, that little Blackfoot girl, and just how. What it would be like if you were able to tell that girl that she would have a connection to Albert Einstein and be making new Blackfoot words, and then have kids that she's super proud of, and that she is doing work for our language. And so yeah, that's just what I think about when I looked at this photo of my mother, whom I'm very proud of. And so I'm going to end here, and I have a couple of just some of my info or contact info if you want. So yeah, thank you. Sorry I went over. I'll keep this up for a little bit, maybe just another few seconds. Can anybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, Corey.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just going nonstop. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think, let's see.
I'm gonna
There we
unshare.
go. Oh, no, you can keep it up for another minute, maybe.
Okay.
Give me a minute to catch my breath.
I surprised you with how I ended it. Sorry, I'm going fast. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. It was an amazing presentation. And so I want to take a minute to just allow you the time to look at all of these chat messages to you about how much it meant to people to hear you speak, how amazing it was indeed. So I am Rebecca Hernandez. I am a Mescalero and Warm Springs Apache, and very moved by your talk tonight. And I kind of need a minute to to just reflect on some things that you shared. As an Indigenous person, I should say also, I'm sorry, I'm a little rattled, that I am the brand new community archivist here at the University Library. And it is such an incredible experience to watch your talk, Corey, and to experience all that you share, especially because the person that you are is so deeply woven into the way that you share your work. And as someone who worked for many years with students, I know that that is lacking in our world, in the academy, and how much it means to all of us to have you really is impossible to express. I want to say that something came to mind, a quote that an elder shared with me once, that we are the sum of our ancestors' prayers. And I listened to what you were talking about today and about your mom. And I just want to take a minute to honor, like really take a quiet moment to honor the fact that so many of our ancestors suffered and were taken away from their communities as children. And, you know, people wanted to change us so desperately that they had no idea what we could contribute and what we already knew. And so thank you to them for persevering, for those that found a way, right? Because of them, we're here. And I find it, I have to just mention this because we're both members of warrior tribes. And
I was going to say that last night. I was definitely going to say that, but I didn't know if that was
okay, this and for the Native folks out there, they understand what that means. So I also want to say hello to all of the folks from the Indigenous Society of Physicists. I saw many familiar names in the participants, and it means a lot, especially Kate High, who I had the great privilege of interviewing last year. And I really, honestly, it's difficult to know where to begin. We have so much we could talk about, right?
Can I say just one thing really quick? Just
Yes, you can.
My mom had texted me and she said that she wanted to she wanted to say that she apologizes for not making it, because I know there was an invite to have her join me here, but she was just wary of COVID, and so she said she's here in spirit. And we're recording. Did we record it?
Yes, we are.
Okay, because
yes,
she's looking forward to being able to watch it as well.
Well, yes, and we appreciate that. Okay, so there's a lot that I could ask about, and of course we have a document filled with questions. So
yeah,
but I think that, you know, we've chatted before about how this conversation could go and some of the things that we both wanted to be sure we could share out. I think the first question I want to ask is what it feels like, you know, to be one of the few Native people working in astronomy, right, out in the world. And if you could speak to how you did a little bit, right? You showed photographs of the things that you do. You like to, you know, spend time outdoors and such. But how talk about that a little bit and share with us, you know, for the students, especially that are watching, because it can be really lonely. You know, I have people ask me all the time, you know, are you going to be the only person there? And I always say I'm usually the only Native person there, wherever it is, right? And so how we learn to navigate these spaces, especially with, you know, academics and intellectuals, and, you know, we think about things very differently. So let's talk a little bit about that, how you sustain yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's familiar with a lot of us, just like, well, you, for instance, too. I mean, you know, you just said what I was going to say, that it was a lonely venture, especially as an undergrad, and working with the project and not knowing that there was any other Indigenous people in the project. You know, the project has, you know, over 1,000 scientists that I work with, and I thought I was the only Native, but over the years I've learned that there are others. So it was just so nice to hear that, because for undergrad, it was it was hard to not see other role models, to not have role models that looked like you. And so, and I was arguably taking a subject that was pretty hard. And so for me, learning physics, I mean, it was almost osmosis, because I would just have my big textbook in my backpack. Like we sang on a drum in undergrad, and I'd have my big old backpack with the physics book on my back, and I was hoping by osmosis I'd be learning some of the equations and stuff that I was studying, because that you had to be creative. And so but yeah, not having role models was definitely hard. But what I love is that recently I've gotten to see other Indigenous physicists who are out there, and I have to give shout outs to Brittany and Kate and Ximena, because I mean, of course, it takes Indigenous women to organize something like this group that we just had, and I'll do whatever they want. I'll be their soldier, because they did the organizing and have done a lot of work, and so we're hoping to make it better for that next generation, for the next group of young ones. Yeah.
And, you know, we've got quite a few questions here. And so
I was going to say something really quick. Ange, one of my friends from college, yeah, I did sing Sorry You Missed It, but it's recorded, so you could watch it later. Ange knows my mom too. So my mom calls Ange Angie, and she's just one of my friends from Humboldt who joined.
Oh, nice. Yes, he did sing. It was great. And in fact, that was one of the things that was commented about, was the fact that you sang and you made these comparisons.
I've never done that before. That was nerve-wracking.
I know, I thought it was perfect. It was great. And so I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that American Indians, you know, are all Indigenous people really, but here in this conversation, you know, we were scientists, we are scientists. We understood the world in ways that I think were even better than the way most people understand them now, right? Because of our connection, to our very intimate relationship with the land that we inhabited, because we were there for very long periods of time before contact. So we went through many, many changes along with the land, right? And I wanted to just share something. I mean, I feel badly because I want to be sure I get to a couple of questions at least, but you know, I had the privilege of taking a course with Peter Nabokov about American Indian architecture.
Yeah.
And we studied the teepee and the physics of the teepee, right? And how the teepee is actually like a perfect building, because when it's windy, it actually drops down onto the ground and stays more steady in the wind. And in our community, the poles are set up so that when light comes through the top, the symbol of the morning star is on the ground. So there's you know, so much connection to the things that the day-to-day things that we created, or the things that we made that were used for daily life, right? The things are symbols. The things that we made to help us from day to day were beautiful reflections of what we saw in the natural world. And so the fact that well, I should say you all are excellent scientists is just kind of, it's innate, right? It's a part of who we always were, and we're forced to forget, but we're back, right? And in force. And I'm so happy that you all are doing that. So thanks to folks, thank you for your, I'm reading from the questions document, for your singing and demonstrating the audio range that way was a powerful way to engage science communication. Lots of questions about how your mom came up with the language. And so you did touch on that a little bit. But let's see, we've got about 4 minutes left. So let's see, does detecting gravitational waves better track near Earth objects than telescopes?
No, these signals have to come from strong gravity objects, and luckily those kind of objects are very far away, because otherwise they'd tear the Earth and us apart. So it's a good thing that all of these sources are very far away. But the sad thing is that they're hard to detect, and that's why it took 100 years to detect them.
Wow. Okay. And great question was if you have. Do you have a wish for future Indigenous physicists? Like what do you most wish for? What would it be?
Yeah, so I mean, what would a wish be? So what would the wish be would be continuing this path of indigenizing science and realizing and knowing that in our blood is a superpower, just being Indigenous. And so that's why I think science is a natural fit for us. And that's why we try to encourage that for the young ones. And just to know that we need to have space at the table. We need to know that our language is important enough to translate astrophysics. And our culture is important enough to be here and to be a part of science as well. I don't know if that answered.
Yes,
Okay.
it did. And then we've got time for one more question, which I am really interested in knowing the answer to, and that's, you know, what would you most want to share with your ancestors if you were able to talk to them today? You know, like I know that they're with us in spirit, but if you could actually have a conversation with ancestors from long ago about what you're doing now with your work, what would be the thing that you think is the most important aspect of it to share with?
I mean, for me, I mean, it's personal. I mean, just
of course,
personally, I mean, it would be cool to be able to just to say that we're still here, of course, and then talk about how we are still proud. Our language is still here, and that now it's connected to astrophysics and all these crazy events that that are just so hard to comprehend, like to think about, and to think that Blackfoot and indigenous culture is kind of tied to that. I mean, I kind of joke around about Einstein being indigenous, just because he talks about how everything is connected via space-time. We're in space-time now, and we're moving space-time when we move things, accelerate things. And so because of that, I kind of think that Einstein is kind of indigenous, or he copied us.
Yeah, yep. Yep, he did. So with that, we are going to bid farewell. I'm so grateful to you for just being such an authentic person and someone that we can look to for how to do difficult work well. And I saw that your mom translated science into difficult stuff. I just think that's priceless. And we do want to honor everyone's time. So the students have a couple of slides at the end here. But again, thank you so much, Corey. It's such a pleasure. And we're very grateful for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been so cool to meet you finally. And then also to meet the amazing interns yesterday, and just how they ran the show. I mean, I knew I was in good hands, and it was also good to connect with Enrico, because we hadn't met since 2016. So that was another cool thing too. So thank you.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So we'll let them take it away.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Corey. Your presentation left me speechless, but thank you so much for being here today. If you guys enjoyed the event as much as we did, please consider filling out our evaluation. We appreciate all feedback.
Also, please consider following our social media accounts. We post all our events on there. We're so close to 1,000 followers on Instagram. So stay on the lookout for a possible giveaway once we reach that milestone.
Yes, and this Saturday we are having our 25th Alma Mater Speaker Series, Indigenous Santa Cruz, with author Dr. Martin Rizzo Martinez. He will be talking about his new book, We Are Not Animals. So please join us on Zoom for this special event on Saturday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The registration link is on our slide and will be placed in the chat.
So this concludes the event. Thank you once again to our amazing speaker, Corey Gray. It was an honor having you here today. We would also like to thank the American Indian Resource Center team and our collaborators, University Library, Special Collections and Archives, and Professor Enrico Ramirez Ruiz. And thank you to all of our guests for coming, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you, guys.